Hare Krishna. So, my name is Agnideva Dās. I was born in Trinidad and Tobago. It's two islands, but one country, and specifically I was born in Trinidad, the island of Trinidad. I was raised in Roman Catholicism by my mother. I always had regard for God, believed in God, but had no knowledge about God. And so I was an altar boy, assisting the priests on the altar. So that was some indication, I guess, because when I finally came to America when I was 21, 2 days before my 21st birthday, to be exact, which is April. I was born April 9, 1949. So I came to America to join my mother. My father had passed away when I was 14, and when I was 15, my mother left me in the care of my uncle, an aunt, and she went to America. And then she sent for me. So I came when I was, for 21. I met the devotees in 1970 on the streets chanting, and I was attracted by the kirtan, the sound of the chanting, even though I didn't know what they were singing, or I didn't even know if it was spiritual, but I liked it. I didn't, they were so different from my experience of religious people. They were so different. But I sensed there's something good about them. So I started going to the temple, and the very first day I went to the temple, they engaged me in some heavy devotional service. Heavy means they gave me a pickaxe and asked me to demolish a broken down fountain. So I did that, and I spent the night, and I went to the morning program, and I concluded that this was very intense, difficult, and I didn't think I could live like that, rising so early in the morning. But I liked them anyway, and I had respect for the devotees. I thought they were amazing that they could live like this. They were living very austere, very little possessions. But I kept coming to the temple, and my relationship with the devotees developed, and my understanding of Krishna consciousness was slowly increasing. And then Srila Prabhupada came. I believe he came in 1972, and I first saw him and heard him speak at the Sunday feast. And that changed. This was New York. In Brooklyn, New York. It was 439 Henry Street in Brooklyn. There were many wonderful devotees there. So after Prabhupada came, I realized that I want to join, I want to follow him. I want to become a real devotee. So it took me a few months, maybe 6 months, to disentangle myself from the material world, because obviously I had my life, I had my agenda, what I thought was important, and I was involved in that. And now I had to free myself from that to come and join him. So I did, and it wasn't easy, but I imagine it wasn't easy for anyone, because we were all devotees, all proper disciples. We were all involved in something before he came. Whether spiritual or material, but we had a life going And we left that to come and be on his agenda, to live according to his advices, his directives. So we did that, and it was, although our living in those days, it was very austere, because ISKCON didn't have the opulence that it has now. Just for an example, there were no beds. There were no beds. I don't think there were beds anywhere in ISKCON. We slept on the floor, a blanket and no pillows, and we didn't own anything. We didn't even own the clothes that we wore, the dhotis and kurtas. That was all communal. We didn't own anything because ISKCON didn't have much. It wasn't until the book distribution era came into being, and funds, suddenly there was lots of funds to do everything, and then the standard of living increased. But in the beginning it was very austere, but it was also very ecstatic. Prabhupada was giving his mercy, and we all felt connected, even though he was only coming to visit once a year for a few days. But we got enough juice from that to keep on going for a whole year. And we would go out on Harinam from 9 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night. On the weekends we'd stay out even later, till 10 o'clock, maybe 11. So, but that was the Krishna consciousness movement that I joined, that I entered into. It was centered around chanting Hare Krishna and distributing the holy name to people, and then distributing magazines and then books and prasadam. And it was a very wonderful experience, very otherworldly experience, you could say, because it wasn't like this anywhere else. And eventually, I think after a couple of years living in the New York Temple, I left for California, because for me, the New York winters were quite an austerity.
You were giving initiation in New York?
Yes, I received initiation. First initiation in New York Temple. Prabhupada wasn't physically present there, but one sannyasi performed these ceremonies. And then sometime later, maybe 6 months later or what, I went to Philadelphia to join Prabhupada. To meet with Prabhupada to get second initiation. So I got second in Philadelphia, along with many of my godbrothers from New York. That was a wonderful time, receiving the mantra from Prabhupada. Then, as I said, I moved to California, Los Angeles. I served there for a couple of years before they sent me to Laguna Beach to be the president of the temple there. At that time, we had a rented house with little Gaurnitai deities. And there was some difficulty there, some problems with the devotees who were there before I came. They had deviated from the standard that Prabhupada had given. And so I guess I was sent there to try to clean it up, which I did. And Gaurnitai was pleased enough to give us a new temple, a church. And when we got the church, it was all when I think back on it, it was very mystical how we acquired the church. And then I decided that we should worship Panchatattva. So Panchatattva came there in Laguna Beach. They're still there. And we had a wonderful time serving there, worshipping there with the Panchatattva. Everything was wonderful. While we were still in the old house, the old temple, Prabhupada left, which was a difficult time for everyone. Thought, how could we go on? How would we go on? We had to go on, but how would we go on? No one knew. It was a learning period, but we carried on with it, and after some years, 10 years or more in Laguna Beach, I stepped down from the presidency. And then at that time I began raising a family. So to support my family, I became a restaurateur. I opened Gauranga's restaurant. Actually, I had opened the first Gauranga I opened inside the temple of Laguna Beach. And I was very successful, extremely successful. It brought many, many, many people to the temple. Previously, our temple was, the only time you would see people at the temple was on Sunday. But with the restaurant, every day, hundreds of people were coming, primarily for the restaurant, but then they would be introduced to go and take darshan of Panchatattva and so on. So that was very good, and that experience I had when I stepped out of the temple. I then opened another Gauranga's in Santa Cruz, along with a godbrother of mine and his family. So 2 families we opened it, and it was very successful. Then after living there for 2 years in Santa Cruz, we decided to sell it. We sold it to another devotee family, and we moved up to Oregon, Eugene, Oregon. Our reasons for going there was real estate was quarter of the price of California, and it was a nice place, so I ended up staying there for 12 years. We opened the Govindas instead of a Gaurangas, which is, they're the same style. It was a buffet style restaurant.
And you were the only devotees in Eugene, or was there another ISKCON temple?
There was no temple or anything there when we went up there. But yeah, we were preaching. We were meeting nice people that came to the temple, etc. And so that was wonderful. We were there for 12 years. And shortly after we arrived there, my godbrother Tripurāri Swami came, and I liked him very much. And his preaching was impeccable. His character was impeccable. So I offered to assist him, and I continued to assist him for almost 20 years. His mission developed, and after about 9 years in Oregon, he moved to California, to Northern California, and I was missing his company so much that I also decided to move. So I sold the restaurant in Oregon and moved to Santa Rosa, California, to be near him, and opened another restaurant there, which I continued to do for about 8 years. So altogether, I was in the restaurant business for 22 years non-stop, which was wonderful because it allowed me to be, it was the kind of job that was right in line with Lord Chaitanya's mission. I was distributing prasadam, preaching to people, and it was nice. It was ideal, I thought. So I did that for altogether 22 years. 12 in Oregon and 10 in California. Then I retired.